Seigi was an absolute dipshit loser living in a war-torn Japan where magical tattoo users known as the Seal have been causing trouble all around the world. Fearing for his life and to get some bitches, he starts learning martial arts, but because of his low aura, no girl wants to be in a mile radius around him. This all changes one day though when on a dark night, Seigi finds himself facing two losers trying to rob a homeless idiot as if he would have anything apart from used syringes. Seigi quickly jumps into action like Batman as the two goons attack him with a knife. Seigi, however, dodges the attack and quickly grabs the goon's arm, slamming him like I slam my meat. The goons start pissing their pants after this and run away like a bunch of bitches while the homeless crackhead randomly places a small stone with a tattoo in his hands. Seigi thinks that he can sell this off-brand meth for a profit, but the moment it touches his skin, it starts glowing with cheap special effects before shocking the absolute crap out of him. The stone then vanishes into thin air just like my dad did, leaving only the tattoo mark behind on his palm. When Seigi demands an explanation, the man starts spouting vague philosophical nonsense, sounding like someone who had one too many deep thoughts after smoking cheap stuff from Ohio. The following morning, Seigi is late and runs toward his middle school where he accidentally bumps into a white-haired girl named Izzy. Like a true Sigma, he tells her to move out of his way immediately, but the girl is Sigma Pro Max as she lands a powerful punch enough to make a grown man shit his pants. Realizing what she has done, she touches his hand carefully to apologize quickly and explains to him that her reflexes tend to knock out anything heading in her direction. When their hands touch each other, both Seigi and the white-haired girl feel an electric spark. She looks shocked and fearful, quickly warning him to be careful before walking away. Later, in class, Seigi keeps scratching at the strange tattoo on his hand like a total retard. His friends ask him what is going on, and he explains the entire story about the shabby man and the tattoo. After listening to it, one of his friends shares a rumor about a secret weapon created by the US government called the Seal in Combat device, which supposedly leaked into the Japanese underworld. He describes it as looking like a tattoo and suspects it might be the same thing. Before Seigi can respond to this Area 51 level conspiracy, a brown-haired curvy girl interrupts their serious discussion with the usual girly crap of shopping. Seigi calls her Tuko and declines the idea, but she keeps pestering him until he finally gives in. Later, while shopping with Tuko, Seigi runs again into the white firecracker from the morning. She apologizes calmly for punching him, but then she shows her true color like my ex and snatches his phone before taking off. Angry at this, Seigi starts chasing as she lures him into a shady abandoned building. Before he can ask what her deal is, she bluntly demands to know where he got the tattoo. When he hesitates, she skips the Q and A and throws a punch which he dodges but immediately gets kicked to the ground. After that, she grabs his hair in a not-so-kinky way and beats the absolute shit out of him, which again reminds me of my ex. Finally, she takes out a knife to shank him, but just like typical girl, her mood swing kicks in and she backs off. As if she didn't just beat the Sigma out of him, she starts explaining that the tattoo is a secret US weapon that grants supernatural powers. To prove it, she grabs a piece of chalk and tells him that every tattoo has a trigger to activate them, and in her case, the trigger for activating her tattoo is chalk. She activates her own tattoo, making a small ball of wind that goes into air and explodes like a mini nuke, which leaves Seigi completely in shock. She explains that tattoos were leaked by a rogue scientist, and her job is to arrest illegal users like Seigi. Returning his phone, she decides to let him go. Back at his dojo, his grandfather beats the shit out of him for losing to a thief and tells him to get stronger as the weak cannot stand for justice. The next day, the white-haired girl sits in a cafe with a man named Tom and watches Seigi from a distance. Tom points out that she revealed way too many secrets to Seigi instead of just retrieving the tattoo, but she brushes him off like an unpaid intern, saying that she'll handle the boy herself. From that day, Azzy begins hailing Seigi like a creepy stalker, but her spying skills are worse than my neighbor as Seigi and his dumbass friends notice her right away. After putting up with her pathetic wannabe bond routine for long enough, Seigi finally confronts her about her terrible attempts at spying. She looks utterly crushed by his review and Seigi ends up awkwardly trying to comfort her like a babysitter. Soon their conversation shifts to strength and emotions, but before they could discuss it further, a musclehead Yakuza charges at them out of nowhere. Seigi knocks the guy out with one punch and Tom steps out from the shadows with his nose bleeding, telling them that this is another illegal tattoo user he's been trying to capture. The Yakuza gets up activating his tattoo and punches Seigi, which sends him flying onto the road. As he steps in to fight the criminal, but Seigi stands up and charges him like a doofus, dodging the attacks pretty well. Izzy warns him that the guy is a new tattoo user and hints him that being new, the criminal doesn't fully understand his power yet. Seigi notices that the guy is only using his brute strength, so Seigi uses his martial arts skills to dodge a blow and instantly lands a solid punch. But before he could celebrate his victory, a man goes wild and grabs Seigi's head, slamming it into the road and continues punching him like he's the idiot who asked for free onlifins. In the middle of the beating, Siggy remembers his dad's wisdom, and with that instant dipshit energy, he's suddenly recharged like a phone on 1%. His tattoo starts glowing, and a dark ball of energy appears in the air. It floats over and touches the man, throwing him away with his organs splashing around. Izzy and Tom watch in shock as they call the dark ball a Voidmaker, amazed to realize they never expected to find its perfect match here in Japan. The following night, Siggy opens his eyes and sees Izzy in front of him. He looks around and gets shocked to find himself in his own room with Izzy and Tom sitting nearby. Being confused, he asks them what is going on and why they are in his room, and they explain that he passed out after that fight, so they carry him there. Izzy introduces them and tells him that they are part of the U.S. Army Tattoo Retrieval Unit, and their mission is to retrieve all tattoos that have spread outside the United States. She presents him with two heavenly options. Either he joins their mission, or they will have to cut off his hand, as tattoos cannot be removed once they fuse with someone's body. She explains to him that his tattoo is named Voidmaker, and due to its extremely unstable nature, it could even kill him if it goes out of control. Siggy gets furious at their attitude and demands an apology for causing this mess in the first place. Instead of apologizing, Izzy calmly shows off her own power and easily knocks him down. Then she reveals that she understands his struggle all too well, as despite being much older than she appears, she is trapped in a child's body forever because of her tattoo's side effects. The next day at school, Siggy is stunned to see Izzy, who joins his class and introduces herself as Bluesy Floozy from Los Angeles, and everyone instantly gets captivated by her beauty. She waves at Siggy like a cheeky devil, making the class glare at him as if he is a hookup artist. As soon as the teacher leaves the class and demands to know her relationship with Siggy, but instead of clarifying, she decides to stir the pot. She tells them their relationship is not just normal and is a secret, which throws everyone into a frenzy. Tuka, with her oversized curves, storms in demanding an explanation while the jealous boys toss Siggy out of the window and into the pool. Later on the terrace, Siggy questions Izzy about why she transferred to his school, and she casually explains that staying close to him will make things more convenient. When she asks if he has decided to join their team, Siggy flips the question and demands to know more about the nature of their work. Izzy admits that their mission sometimes involves actions that are not entirely moral, but she insists it is all for the sake of maintaining peace. She explains that they are working to prevent a war between the United States and the Sirenston Kingdom, which possesses more advanced tattoo technology and is looking for world domination. After some thought, Siggy agrees to join them but sets some conditions. Izzy accepts his condition and welcomes him to their team known as Blue Moon. She gives him an address and asks him to come there for more details about the next mission. Before leaving, Izzy mentions that she has figured out the nature of his tattoo and reveals that blood acts as its trigger, which leaves Siggy in horror. In the evening, Siggy tries to escape from Tuka and heads to the address, but Tuka sees him and follows blindly like a total moron. He reaches the address and rings the doorbell, but instead of Izzy, Tom opens the door and invites him inside. Tuka watches from behind, her 3000 IQ brain kicking in, and she finds it suspicious. She decides to go ahead, but hesitates and drops the idea, but just as she is about to head home, a shaggy girl gives her a creepy stare, which makes her nervous. The girl places her hand on Tuka's forehead, and with the help of the tattoo on her hand, she takes control of Tuka's body. Sticky steps into the house, expecting a secret U.S. Army hideout, but he gets disappointed to find out that it is just a normal house. He notices a collection of idol songs and a fluffy bunny plush in Tom's room, which makes him question their seriousness. In absence of Izzy, Tom tells Siggy about a secret basement and asks him to bring a cardboard box from there, saying that they will need it soon. Siggy goes down to the basement and is surprised to find a large training base down there, filled with many weapons, research equipment, and training gear. Suddenly, the doorbell rings and Tom answers it, but as soon as he opens the door, an umbrella pierces through his chest, leaving him bleeding heavily. Hearing the commotion, Siggy rushes upstairs, only to find Tuko standing there with her eyes vacant as if she is being controlled. Blood is dripping from the umbrella in her hands, and the sight of blood triggers a reaction in Siggy's tattoo, causing it to glow ominously. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Izzy finishes setting up tattoo detection alarms in a building. As she prepares to leave, the alarms blare and a figure emerges from the shadows. It is another tattoo user, and before Izzy can react, he attacks her. She dodges quickly, but the move tears her dress slightly. Glaring at the attacker, she demands to know why the kingdom would provoke a war by sending someone after her. The man smirks and reveals that the wise king and queen are no more, and the kingdom is now ruled by his daughter Aryabhata. He introduces himself as Behemoth Viper, a member of Aryabhata's elite and personal tattoo force known as Brahmin. Without hesitation, the fight begins with Izzy and Viper clashing in an intense battle. Viper lashes his whip at Izzy, but she dodges skillfully and leaps out of the broken window. As he mocks her for hiding instead of fighting, she smirks like a Chad and calmly points out his two big mistakes. The first, she says, was not finishing her off before she activated her tattoo, and the second was ruining her brand new school uniform. She picks up a stone from the debris and throws it towards Viper. The moment it hits ground, it explodes like a bomb because of her tattoo and creates a massive blast with a thick cloud of smoke. Viper steps out of the smoke to fight, but by the time the dust clears, Izzy has already escaped towards her base. Back in the house, Tom explains to Sigi that the girl is an assassin sent by the kingdom. The girl calmly admits she is only controlling Tuka's body for this fight. Tom points to the box they brought from the basement and explains it contains blood transfusion packs that can act as a trigger for Sigi's tattoo. He warns Sigi to take only enough blood to boost his physical and mental abilities but avoid activating the Void Maker. Sigi runs toward the box, but the assassin intercepts him and stabs his hand, which causes blood to spill on his tattoo. With that much blood is not enough to activate it. Sigi quickly thinks of a way to get more blood and notices Tom's blood splattered across the room from the earlier stab. Grabbing a table for defense, he blocks the assassin's attack. When she breaks the table, Sigi catches her umbrella, which is soaked in Tom's blood. As soon as the blood touches his tattoo, it begins to glow and activates, which enhances his physical and mental abilities. The assassin launches multiple attacks, but Sigi can now see her movements clearly and dodges with incredible speed. However, as the fight continues, she corners him, leaving him no room to counterattack and punch him hard. He falls on the ground and she drives the pin of the umbrella deep into his shoulder. The assassin is about to stab Sigi to death, but Tuka briefly regains control of her body, causing a moment of confusion. Sigi seizes the chance and strikes, knocking the assassin to the ground. Tom rushes over and, using his tattoo, pulls the assassin out of Tuka's body, much like a pro-exorcist banishing a ghost, and tosses her aside. Taking a closer look, Tom tells Sigi that she is part of the kingdom's elite tattoo force, Broman, and is named Iltutmish. As they talk, the assassin suddenly lunges at Tom, but Sigi steps in to shield him, and the umbrella pierces through Sigi's hand. Sigi becomes furious at the assassin, demanding to know why she dragged Tuka into this mess. His tattoo glows brightly, healing his wounds, and a dark sphere of energy forms in his hand. The sphere keeps growing uncontrollably, but Tuka wraps her arms around Sigi, pulling him back to his senses. By the time he calms down, the Void Maker has already expanded beyond control, engulfing the entire house in its energy. The assassin barely escapes with her life, dodging the Void Maker by a hair. Just as she prepares to attack again, she receives a call ordering her to retreat, informing her that Izzy is on her way and is completely out of her league. After some time, Izzy returns home only to stop in confusion. She is sure this used to be her house. From the half-destroyed structure, Tom comes out with his organs practically spilling everywhere and explains the situation to her. Later in the basement, Izzy trains Sigi in hand-to-hand combat and easily beats him to a pulp. She points out areas he needs to improve while he lies on the floor. During the break, Tom places a sticker over Tuka's tattoo to hide it. When Sigi asks more about tattoos, Tom explains that his own tattoo is a removable one called a copy, and unlike permanent tattoos, copies do not take root in the body, making them less powerful but safe for use. After the chat, Izzy shows Sigi a photo of a person whose organs are horrifyingly splattered everywhere. She explains that this person once used the Void Maker, but it went out of control. Sigi looks horrified at the image, and Izzy warns him that the same could happen to him if he loses control of his tattoo. She makes him promise to never use the Void Maker without her permission again. As their training continues, Tom gives Sigi and Tuka a device designed to detect nearby tattoo users. He explains that the alarm will go off if someone activates their tattoo, and both he and Izzy will receive a notification on their phones to come and assist. After Sigi leaves, Izzy and Tom realize the kingdom likely spotted him during the Yakuza fight. Tom suggests taking him to America for safety, but Izzy refuses, saying he would just become a lab rat there. Later, on the street, Sigi and Tuka come across a protected mother cat and her sick kitten while walking. They leave without interfering, unaware that two kingdom assassins, Iltutmish and Viper, are watching from the shadows. After they are gone, the mother cat brings the kitten to the assassins. Iltutmish recalls her rough childhood in the slums and takes the kitten to their base. Later in their apartment, Iltutmish bathes the kitten and discovers it is male. The kitten escapes the bathroom and she chases after him like a clown without clothes. Amid the commotion, Viper receives a parcel and calls out to her. She eagerly opens the package and finds her new magical sword, along with their next mission to assassinate another member of the U.S. Army named Lisa, who's a friend of Izzy. Iltutmish's playful mood vanishes as she grips the sword tightly, preparing for what is to come. 2 weeks later, Sigi is chasing an illegal tattoo user and easily overpowers him. Izzy watches the chase from a distance, guiding him on how to use his tattoo's power effectively. After he captures the criminal, his power fades and Izzy explains that his activation limit is about 10 minutes. She advises him to be mindful of this in future battles to avoid running out of power mid-fight. In her mind, Izzy reflects on how much Sigi has improved in just 2 weeks. She considers him a perfect match for the Void Maker and believes he has a natural talent for tattoos. Meanwhile, in an apartment, Lisa and her assistant are hosting a party when a helicopter appears above their building. Without making a sound, Iltutmish jumps from the helicopter and uses her abilities to pass through walls, arriving directly in the room where the party is taking place. The guests quickly try to defend themselves, but she overpowers them effortlessly, slaughtering everyone. During the chaos, one of them manages to press an emergency button, alerting Izzy and Tom. They immediately rush toward the building to help. Sigi also notices his alarm going off, indicating Izzy's tattoo, and grows suspicious. Seeing her running, he decides to follow her, sensing it might be urgent. As Izzy races toward Lisa's building, she suddenly feels her body becoming unusually heavy and collapses to the ground. She tries to stand but fails, confused about what is happening. Viper appears and calmly explains that it is advanced technology designed to bind those using tattoos. He tells her that he is unaffected because he has not activated his tattoo and mocks her helplessness. Though he could easily kill her, he chooses not to and instructs her to stay down, knowing she cannot move for a while before leaving. Soon after, Sigi arrives and finds Izzy on the ground. He asks her what is going on, and she hurriedly explains the situation with Lisa. She is surprised to see that Sigi is unaffected by the binding technology despite being a tattoo user. She urges him to save Lisa, and without hesitation, he rushes toward the apartment to help. Back in the building, Iltutmish and Lisa engage in a fierce fight. At first, Lisa uses her ability to turn the air into combustible material, causing explosions in midair. However, Iltutmish skillfully deflects the blasts with her swords and counters with swift attacks. Over time, Lisa starts losing stamina and is eventually captured in a brutal manner. Sigi arrives at the scene only to find Lisa restrained in the building littered with bodies and destruction. Anger flares within him as he spots Iltutmish. Without thinking, he charges at her, but she effortlessly counters his attacks, sending him flying with a single strike. Sigi is hurled out of the building, plummeting toward the ground. Just before he hits the ground, Tom appears out of nowhere and pulls him to safety. Once back on solid ground, Sigi tries to go after Iltutmish again, but Tom stops him, warning that she is far too powerful and would kill him instantly. Before they can act further, a helicopter descends onto the building, taking Iltutmish, Viper, and a captive Lisa with it. Tom quickly hides with Sigi, watching helplessly as the helicopter flies away. Later, Izzy and Tom arrive at the scene to investigate. While searching, they find Lisa's phone, which still has a recording on it. Izzy plays the video and is shocked by what she sees. She throws the phone to Tom to show him, but instead of focusing on the recording, Tom foolishly browses through Lisa's gallery and finds some embarrassing photos of Izzy. Infuriated, Izzy slaps him hard and points him to the actual recording. The video reveals the assassins discussing their plans to take Lisa to their home country for experimentation. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Izzy and Tom grow serious. Izzy tells Tom to contact the Zamas headquarters and request reinforcements as they are determined to rescue Lisa. That evening, Tom calls Sigi to their secret hideout, and both Sigi and Tuka arrive. Izzy greets them with an exaggerated sweetness, making Sigi suspicious. When he questions her unusual behavior, she suddenly punches him, knocking him out and puts handcuffs on him. Confused, Sigi asks what she is doing. Izzy explains that they need to protect him as the assassins are after the Void tattoo user. To keep him safe, he must stay there and is forbidden from participating in the fight. Tuka protests, saying she does not want to stay behind, but Izzy explains that Tuka's forehead tattoo is somehow connected to Iltutmish. Whenever Iltutmish's tattoo activates, Tuka's powers also surge, enhancing her physical and mental abilities. Since the exact nature of the tattoo is still unknown, it is safer to keep them both away from the battle until they learn more. As soon as Izzy leaves, Sigi starts his over-the-top emotional rant about wanting to be a hero and refusing to be locked up. Tom, clearly annoyed, tells him to shut up and think about the situation. He explains that under normal circumstances, Sigi would have been shipped off to the US as a lab rat for experiments. The only reason he is still free is because Izzy is protecting him and has not informed the main army about his Voidmaker tattoo. Tom adds that if Sigi gets himself killed or captured, the information about him will leak on the underground and Izzy will face severe punishment for hiding this information. Despite Tom's logical explanation, Sigi acts like a total blockhead. In a dramatic display of dumbness, he forcefully frees himself from the handcuffs, leaving his hand bleeding. As if that was not dumb enough, his tattoo activates from the blood and his powers start surging uncontrollably. Tom steps in to stop his reckless behavior, but Sigi punches him and tries to escape the basement facility. However, their Prison Break 2.0 plan comes to a halt when they realize the basement door is locked. Sigi, still acting like a wannabe hero, declares that he will use his Voidmaker to cut through the door. Tom, now clearly regretting all his life choices, watches as Sigi activates his Voidmaker. But instead of cutting the door, the Voidmaker's power goes completely out of control. In seconds, it engulfs the entire house, leaving nothing behind except a crater in the ground with the basement door stuck awkwardly in the center. Tuka and Sigi stand there like a pair of complete idiots, staring at the destruction they have caused. The house is gone, with the neighborhood looking like it just survived an alien invasion. Meanwhile, at the port, Viper and Iltutmish are transporting Lisa in a truck, planning to board a ship. Just as they think everything is going smoothly, Izzy and her reinforcement army surround them. Both assassins and Izzy immediately activate their tattoos and step forward to fight. Before the fight starts, Iltutmish's fancy new sword drops from the sky, distracting everyone for a moment. Viper uses the chance to attack, but Izzy dodges while some poor soldiers get caught in the mess. Iltutmish grabs her sword and goes off to handle the reinforcements, while Viper pulls out his whip and starts wrecking everything around him. The two assassins go on a wild rampage, wiping out the U.S. Army forces like it is a casual day at work. Viper takes out most of the soldiers, but Izzy sneaks up from his blind spot. She gets close enough to shoot at him, firing several bullets. To her annoyance, only one bullet hits while the rest are dodged like Viper is in an action movie. As they fight, Izzy realizes Viper can control the weight of objects, making it easy for him to deflect her attacks. Thinking fast, she switches to her shock rounds and zaps him. Viper flails like a live electric chicken, but before Izzy can finish him off, he traps her using his tattoo binding trick, pinning her to the ground. Just as Viper is about to shoot her, Lisa suddenly shows up with her team. Having escaped from the truck, she helps Izzy get up. Together, they beat Viper into a miserable heap, leaving him out cold on the ground. Meanwhile, Iltutmish finishes off the reinforcement forces and heads for the command base. Just as she is about to strike, Sigi shows up dramatically on his bicycle, looking like he is trying to be a hero in a comic book. Iltutmish rushes at him, but Sidi uses his Voidmaker to destroy her sword. She attacks him with her two hidden swords and overpowers him. Sidi realizes he is outmatched and tries to run through the containers at the port. However, Iltutmish uses her ability to phase through matter and walls, easily keeping up with him. No matter how far he goes, she stays right behind him, making his escape pointless. Watching the chaos, Tom comes up with a theory. He thinks Iltutmish's powers work only if someone is watching her, like the famous Schrodinger's cat, and tells Sigi to close his eyes. Sigi, being the lovable idiot he is, actually closes his eyes in the middle of the fight, but Iltutmish stabs him anyway and points out that Tuka, hiding nearby, is still watching. Sigi freezes in fear as Iltutmish moves in to finish him off, and just when all hope seems lost, Tuka leaps in like a reckless hero, charging at Iltutmish with her tattoo activated and managing to land a shocking blow. The fight between them begins fiercely, but Iltutmish quickly overpowers Tuka, leaving her struggling helplessly on the ground. Seeing Tuka's defeat, Sigi finally snaps out of his daze and stands up, using his brain for once to create a void that breaks the ground beneath them, sending all three tumbling into the hole. As Iltutmish tries to recover, Sigi seizes the moment, activates his Voidmaker, and lands a powerful punch that knocks her down, though he notices she seems like someone's elder sister and awkwardly tries to talk to her. Before he can say much, the scene takes an even stranger turn as Aryapata, the new queen of the kingdom, suddenly appears out of nowhere. Aryapata walks up to Sigi with an air of authority, kisses him without warning, and casually praises his potential as a tattoo user, complimenting his clever use of the Voidmaker to save both Tuka and Iltutmish. While Sigi stands there like a clueless blockhead, struggling to process what is happening, Aryapata starts dragging the assassins with her, only to be confronted by Izzy and Lisa, who try to stop her. Effortlessly, Aryapata demonstrates her tattoo powers, shocking everyone as they realize her tattoo is also a Voidmaker, but far more advanced, leaving them all stunned. She calmly tells Sigi that she is leaving a key to the triggerless tattoos with the USA and warns him to prepare himself, mentioning that the source wants Sigi. Without giving anyone time to react, Aryapata vanishes into thin air, taking the assassins with her. Sigi, still trying to understand what just happened and is confused about the source with his brain seemingly ready to shut down from the overload of information. Later, while walking through the city, Sigi sees Iltutmish and Aryapata. He gets scared, thinking they're there to fight, but to his surprise, they're just having a normal conversation. After talking for a while, Aryapata asks him who he's fighting for. Sigi replies that he's fighting to stop the war that Aryapata wants to start. Listening to this, Aryapata laughs and says that whatever Sigi wants to do will work out, and that the desire for peace will be fulfilled without any fighting if the plan she is working for gets successful. Sigi gets a call from Izzy, but someone named Blackstone picks up the phone. When Izzy hears the name, she addresses him as BB and gets shocked to find out that he is there in Japan. Over the phone, BB tells Izzy that he's taking Sigi with him and will return him the next day. Soon after, BB and Sigi arrive at a building. BB tells Sigi that this is a secret research center the kingdom uses for tattoo research, and that they use humans as lab rats. He also mentions that tonight, they plan to attack the lab. Sigi, being the idiot he is, activates his Voidmaker and punches a hole in the wall to enter the facility with BB. As they make their way into the lab, Sigi learns that BB also uses a triggerless tattoo like him. Sigi asks how many triggerless tattoo users there are, and BB tells him that currently there are 4, the same number as the ancient tattoo ruin. Sigi asks about the ancient coins, and BB explains that these ruins control the power of tattoos. The US has 1, while the kingdom has 2 out of the 4. The last one is in Japan, and both the US and the kingdom are fighting to find and control it. Inside the lab, they meet a mad scientist named Karma, who is the head of the facility. He calls BB a traitor and says he will punish him for betraying the kingdom. Karma sends his army of artificially created tattoo users to attack them, but Sigi, being the slow learner, figures out what's going on. Karma reveals he has found the source of tattoos, and Sigi asks what it is. Karma explains that the source is like the nucleus of a tattoo which supports and transmits its power. Karma orders his army of test subjects to kill them, and informs them that if these subjects get knocked out, they will explode immediately. Two of the subjects attack Sigi in tandem, and he tries to dodge all the bullets while the other subject uses his scythe to try and kill him. BB doesn't even break a sweat and quickly dispatches multiple subjects at once. Sigi gets surrounded by the enemies, but BB comes in front of him, finally using his abilities to knock them all out at once. Sigi covers himself, expecting an explosion, but nothing happened. Karam gets shocked and asks what he did with his subjects, to which BB replies that he used his Voidmaker ability to precisely remove the explosives from inside the bodies of his subjects without hurting their organs. With his forces losing control, Karma tries to escape, but BB catches him, knocking him down with his assistant, and the army arrests them for using humans in his experiment. Meanwhile, in a mysterious cave on the other side of the city, Arya with her vice captain Cal and Iltutmish find the fourth ruin. They find a huge glowing magical crystal, and Arya enters inside it to make contact with the magical power, ordering Cal and Iltutmish to stand there as guard there. Later, Sigi practices controlling his Voidmaker tattoo by focusing on long sight and precision. BB approaches him and explains how tattoos have waves and frequency. He teaches Sigi how to control his power more precisely, suggesting he start by making small, manageable chunks of energy, like the size of a hair, so he doesn't accidentally disintegrate someone or mess them up for life. That evening, Izzy meets BB and addresses him as the former U.S. Army major. They talk about Sigi's potential and something mysterious, an oscillator, which Sigi has but doesn't even know about. After some more conversation, Izzy asks why BB left the U.S. Army and joined the kingdom. BB doesn't give her much of an answer, but says he's trying to save everyone. When Izzy keeps pestering him like a whiny brat, BB opens up a little more. He tells her that Princess Aryapata is trying to take control of all four ruins and use the power of tattoos to rewrite reality. He says it's possible they've already found the fourth ruin, so instead of focusing on finding it, the U.S. should protect the third one they have. BB promises to stop Aryapata, but Izzy, not buying it, calls him selfish and says he only does what benefits him, ignoring those who try to support him on his journey. Without saying much, BB leaves, telling Izzy to keep an eye on Sigi and make sure he doesn't stray onto the wrong path. Ignoring Blackstone's warning, a team of 20 tattoo users and U.S. Army personnel, led by Colonel Sanders, heads to attack the cave where Princess Aryapata and her squad of Brahmana are attempting to make contact with the ruin. The team includes Izzy, Sigi, Tuka, and a few elite army members, all packed into a helicopter. Colonel Sanders, trying to hype up the mission, tells them this cave could hold a treasure trove of tattoos, potentially as powerful as the ones already in the USA. He introduces the team to Sigi and mentions his great expectations for him, calling him their star Voidmaker user. When they reach the cave, the army wastes no time making missiles and bullets rain down from the helicopters onto the site. The tattoo users, along with Sigi and Izzy, leap straight from the helicopters to the ground like action movie extras. But just as they prepare to storm the cave, Kal Shekhar, the vice captain of the elite Brahmana force, steps out. Thinking Kal is just one person guarding the cave, a cocky tattoo user rushes at her, showing off his powers. But before he knows it, he collapses in front of her. Confused, he looks down and realizes his body has been sliced cleanly in half. Kal, with the calmness of someone chopping vegetables, moves forward and casually decapitates him. As if to add flair to her introduction, 6 more maids appear from behind her. Kal introduces them as her assistants, who are just as deadly. Izzy and Tom soon find themselves in a tough fight against one of the maids. Izzy, sweating bullets, wonders how this copy tattoo user is still able to keep up with them and matching them move for move. On another front, the lieutenant of the tattoo retrieval unit, along with some army members, takes on Calendar. They jump into the air and unleash a storm of bullets, practically filling the sky with them. But Kal casually blocks all the bullets with an air barrier, and not a single shot touches her. Then she fiercely glares at the battlefield, and the sheer force of her spiritual pressure blasts everyone away like ragdolls caught in a hurricane. Stevie uses his empty head and runs toward the cave, thinking that he can bypass Kal and face Arya directly. He smugly assumes he has left her behind, but before he even makes it a few steps inside, Kal is in front of him. She slashes him heavily, and he collapses, completely unable to move. Meanwhile, deeper inside the cave, one of Arya's assistants informs her about the number of enemies and their powers. Arya realizes that even Kal might get tired eventually with so many opponents to handle. She decides to lend some of her powers to Iltutmish, temporarily taking control of her body to assist Kal in the fight. Iltutmish emerges on the battlefield, transformed into a massive, terrifying cat-like monster. Without hesitation, she begins attacking the U.S. helicopters, ripping through them like toys. Helicopter after helicopter goes down in flames. Colonel Sanders, realizing the danger, grabs Tuka and leaps out of their helicopter just before it is destroyed. As soon as he lands on the ground, Kal appears in front of him like a shadow. She attacks with her sword, and the force from her swing sends shockwaves, cutting everything in its path. The colonel manages to dodge, barely escaping the deadly attack. He retaliates with a punch aimed at the air, sending a massive shockwave toward Calendar. She sidesteps quickly, surprised by the impact as the wave shatters a tree behind her into two. Izzy arrives to back up the colonel and fires a barrage of bullets, but Cal dodges every single one like she is dancing through the air. Realizing her usual tactics are useless, Izzy switches strategies and manipulates the air, decreasing its density and trapping Cal momentarily. Taking advantage of this, the colonel charges forward and lands a solid punch on Cal, forcing her backward and leaving blood dripping from her mouth. Before they can press their advantage, Cal regains her composure. She gathers air into a dense ball around her. In the next moment, she releases it in a powerful blast. The colonel dodges just in time, but Izzy is caught in the blast, her arm getting severely injured in the process. The colonel tries to take advantage by landing another hit on Cal, but she moves faster. Her sword strikes him, and he falls to the ground. Viewed in pain, he declares that the United States will never fall to the likes of her. Cal, unfazed, steps forward and calmly slices across his eyes, blinding him completely. She then turns toward Izzy, ready to finish her off. Just as her sword is about to strike, BB suddenly appears and deflects the attack midair. He states that despite leaving the U.S. Army, Johnson, Wang, and Sanders were still his war buddies, to which Sanders, lying on the ground, weakly responds that he is not dead yet. Princess Arya appears in front of Siggy and calls BB a fool for walking right into the trap she set. She tells him his no-kill policy is just a hindrance, and because of that, he doesn't stand a chance of winning today. Siggy starts to get really ticked off. But before he can say a word, Arya grabs his neck and pins him against a wall she creates with her power in the middle of the field. Next moment, she summons a spear made of roots from the ground and stabs it right through his body, pinning him against the wall like some twisted painting. Siggy, not wanting to stay quiet, starts arguing and tells her that the way she's doing things won't make the world any better. Arya just smirks, barely bothered by his words, and asks him what he plans to do instead. Then, in a surprise twist, Arya reveals that she doesn't care about Siggy or his plans. She's after the key to the tattoo he's holding. She tells him that today BB will die and she will absorb the key to the triggerless tattoo he's holding. She admits that she was the one who leaked information to the U.S. Army, luring them to this place. She even adds that she knew BB would come here because he and Izzy used to be lovers when they were in the army, and that's why he came back to save her. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, BB asks Cal if she loves him. Cal gets flustered, saying it's all so sudden. She blames the redness in her face on the fight, but BB, being the teasing idiot he is, calls her out, saying a true warrior should never be afraid to show her emotions. Reluctantly, Cal admits that she loves him. But then BB pulls Izzy into his arms, looking at Cal with a grin and says he's sorry, but Izzy is the one he gives his heart to. Naturally, Cal goes absolutely bananas and charges at him, ready to fight. BB tells Izzy to save Siggy while he keeps Cal distracted. Izzy runs towards Siggy, who is still stuck against the wall, pinned by roots. She reaches the spot and hides behind a rock before firing a shot at Arya. The bullet doesn't even touch Arya, getting blocked by her dark aura. Arya smirks and summons more roots from the ground, which wrap around Izzy and lift her into the air like some strange decoration. Meanwhile, Cal lands a strong hit on BB, causing him to collapse near Siggy. One of BB's arms is chopped off in the fight, grating his teeth. He summons the last remnants of his power, begging his core for 5 more minutes. The core responds, and using its strength, BB reattaches his arm and launches back into battle. The fight between BB and Cal becomes intense, with both attacking fiercely. BB hurls dark void spheres at Cal, but she blocks them with her air barrier. Just as it seems BB might overpower her, Cal breaks through her own barrier, sending sharp fragments flying like bullets that pierce BB. Siggy watches helplessly, frustrated at his mentor's struggle. Fueled by anger, he calls on his core, pleading for the strength to defeat even Arya for the sake of justice. His core responds, unleashing a burst of energy that shatters the spears pinning him. The power of Siggy's triggerless tattoo weakens Cal's tattoo, giving BB the upper hand. BB lands a final punch that knocks Cal unconscious, but the fight leaves him severely wounded. As his borrowed 5 minutes end, his own tattoo begins consuming him from within. Barely able to speak, BB calls out to Siggy, urging him to absorb him. Siggy refuses, horrified at the idea, but Arya, sensing an opportunity, prepares to consume BB herself. Before she can act, Colonel Sanders, observing the chaos from a helicopter, fires a missile toward the ruins. He declares that if the United States cannot control tattoos, no one else should either. Arya redirects her power to stop the missile, causing it to detonate midair. In the chaos, BB commands Siggy's core directly, bypassing his hesitation. Siggy's core responded by rushing toward BB and devouring him and along with his tattoo. To Siggy, it feels like watching someone eat a crunchy chocolate bar, except the horror of the moment drowns out any humor. Siggy collapses, overwhelmed by what he has been forced to do. Before Siggy can gather himself, Tuka emerges from the forest, calling his name with relief written all over her face. Her eyes light up with joy as she spots him, and she races toward him with everything she has. But just as she's about to reach him, Iltutmish, in her monstrous cat form, leaps out of nowhere. With one swift, brutal motion, she devours Tuka whole, leaving no trace behind. Seigi can only stand there frozen as yet another piece of his world is ripped away before his eyes. Arya, standing off to the side, looks pleased. She remarks that she is making a prediction about the future, that Seigi will come to her eventually, driven by revenge for the deaths of his mentor and his childhood friend. Then, with Iltutmish by her side, Arya vanishes into thin air. Days later, Seigi sits alone in a dark alley, with no one left to talk to and the weight of his choices pressing heavily on him. An old man approaches, and as Seigi looks closer, he realizes it is the same man who gave him his tattoo that fateful night. The man introduces himself as Wiseman and calmly explains that he was BB's old friend. He reveals BB's final wish to erase all tattoos from the world, and says it is now Seigi's responsibility to complete the task entrusted to him. Seigi listens in silence, his mind swirling with everything that has happened. Slowly, the idea of fulfilling BB's wish stirs something inside him. The thought of completing the mission left by his mentor sparks a renewed sense of purpose, and for the first time in days, he feels motivated to act. Seigi takes a deep breath and looks towards Izzy, who is the only companion remaining with him. BB's wish gives him a new purpose to move forward and a determination to honor his mentor's sacrifice. He decides to gather his scattered allies and march straight towards the kingdom to battle and end this chaos caused by tattoos.